It's so humbling to be here, and especially after this powerful memorial service today. I feel like I'm on hallowed ground. Eddie left an incredible legacy, and Alyssa and everyone else who's keeping it going. I'm just so humbled and honored to be part of it this year, and you all are now part of the legacy as well. Sorry, there's not a lot of light in here. I'm incapable of just chatting as I click through pictures like everyone else has, and I really envy them that ability. But I find it easier to articulate through the written word. So if I may, I'll read this speech, and after there'll be a retrospective photo presentation with audio. I'm especially nervous speaking here tonight with so many of my, I don't want to say peers, because they've been my heroes for so many years, such amazing talent that it's just mind-boggling. And the students have been so inspiring, just not even just their pictures, but their personalities, their spirit is contagious. And I've been so touched in so many ways in the past few days that I wasn't even expecting. First, I'll put one photo up just to look at something. It's not a glamorous job, obviously. This is Bimuna, and when a little 4-year-old war amputee asks you to wear pigtails to her party, you wear pigtails to her party. So her story will be in the show. She's 19 now and a foot taller than me, and quite stunning, actually. It's been said when you make a photo, you take a piece of the soul, and as well you give a part of yours. There are pieces of my soul scattered all over the earth, and indeed it's what makes me whole. However, documenting man's inhumanity can take an emotional toll. Sometimes ours are the only ears that hear those silent screams. Translating what you experience is a formidable task, and never exactly the same as walking in another's shoes. Photojournalists, we're chameleons by nature, I think, and we inhabit someone's skin intimately enough to tell their story, yet remain a neutral spectator of their world. It's a delicate balance in which the lens can be a shield, but only a temporary respite. Some deem certain stories cliché, but it's really hard to tell a desperate woman holding her wounded child that she's merely a cliché. These people can't turn the page or change channels when they don't like the story. They're stuck in reality long after the headlines are gone. And you wonder how many pictures you can take until someone really sees. But then you glimpse the splendor in the human spirit, even in the most desolate of times, and it becomes imperative to record their plight. There was always guilt covering those dire situations. I could get on a plane, but they couldn't. A defining moment for me was seeing a print come to life in a tray, which was pure magic. Not sure it's the same seeing your first print come up or photo come up on a computer screen, but I took a darkroom class back in the day when I was in nursing school, failed it, but it gratefully led to this profession. And I wouldn't trade this career for the world, though at times I've been screamed at, knocked down, trampled by mobs mostly of other photographers, arrested, shot at, and was deemed obsessive by my editors too numerous times to count, but I prefer the word dedicated. Photographers always seek the best light, but the most vital radiance, I think, is the inner essence. It's that light that, dear sweet John White speaks of so eloquently. Pictures reveal not only our differences, but also the qualities that make us part of a world family. And as Robert Capa said, if your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough. But close enough doesn't always mean standing in the flames. Even more difficult can be breaking that barrier of intimacy. The fall of the Berlin Wall was a wow moment. It's when you put the camera down and pinch yourself. There's not enough wow moments in life, and I guess that's why they're so very precious. The morning they were about to take out the first chunk, I found myself in a crushing crowd, unable to see, until I noticed a very large German male tripod smiling at me. So he put me on his shoulders and spent that moment with my cameras clanging off his forehead. But it's amazing what people will do if you just look desperate enough, I guess. The ever-changing technology is fascinating. Without those cameras, we couldn't capture time and preserve history. And now they even shoot in the dark, which is wonderful because I don't know where a strobe is for probably 2 decades. So thank you, Nikon. But whatever the latest tools, it's important to learn well enough to forget, so the mechanics become second nature. It's eyes and minds and hearts that always make the most compelling images. Empathy, a small word with epic meaning. We've seen throughout history how selective compassion breeds hate. It's the source of all the isms in my mind: racism, sexism, terrorism, speciesism. It starts when one group deems another unworthy of mercy. And in my humble opinion, if all life is not equal to the same level of kindness we wish for ourselves, it becomes the foundation for abuse. And when we turn away from our oppression, our silence becomes complicity. However, a shoot-the-messenger mentality towards the media seems to be escalating, and I can't quite pinpoint when we became the enemy. We've always been considered neutral sometimes considered neutral observers, but now certainly we're targets more often than not. And also, seeing too much violence over morning cereal can infuriate readers, and fingers point at the press for running those disturbing images. Sensitivity is very important, but there's danger in censoring reality as well. Yes, those photos are uncomfortable to view, but for many in this world, there is no breakfast cereal or freedom from fear. And perhaps that's what society should find most intolerable, not the pictures that remind us of it. A photograph can be a powerful witness, an eloquent voice for those who have none. They inform, educate, enlighten, captivate, and spur governments into action at times. They're historical documents and poignant reminders of our human frailties. They're our life's work, our legacy. Tapestry of experiences has profoundly enriched my life. And this is one of them, actually, this weekend. And you'll see some of them in the show to follow. I've documented a vast range of the human condition: the anguish of conflict, rapture of revolution and liberation. I've seen famines of biblical proportions, watched communism crumble, seen wretched poverty and men beaten to death by mobs. I have seen the eyes of evil, the hands of injustice, and the face of repression. But as well, pictures I've taken of many a kindergarten class are proudly displayed on folks' refrigerators. I've developed film in toilets and argued with demented taxi drivers in every conceivable language. Walked with mountain gorillas in Rwanda, feeling the primal bonds we have with nature. And I'm so distressed by the destruction our species has caused. And I so love Amy Vitale's work. I think she's doing an incredible job. This year, I documented research chimps in Liberia, tortured for decades in experiments, then left abandoned by the New York Blood Center. Their former caretakers, also abandoned from their jobs, made heroic efforts with meager means to feed these island chimps until the Humane Society stepped in to help. A few years ago, I rode in a boat during Katrina past homes in the surreal city that was once New Orleans. And inside those flooded homes were eerie mementos of shattered destinies. Family photos spoke mournfully of the touchstones of life, smiling faces on walls covered with mold, fading with each passing day, served as a painful metaphor for the death of that city. And in many homes, the display included a tenderly framed image of the beloved family pet. Animals, the most silent of victims, lost by archaic policy. Sacrificing pets did not save people, and in fact, it increased the pain, and there's now legislation to avoid these consequences in future disaster, thankfully. I tried doing that story for years until it got noticed in Katrina. I've climbed to a mountaintop with Haitians who believe if they just get a little closer to their God, he may finally hear them. I photographed the first breath of a baby and the unmistakable expression of death as the light leaves someone's eyes. It's photos that become the lasting memorial for our loved ones. Recently, I sailed to Cuba with Josh Basil, a quadriplegic who I actually photographed 12 years ago when he first broke his neck. But now he has a nonprofit and he shares adaptive sports adventures as motivation for others with spinal cord injuries to live every breath, as he says. By an ironic twist of fate, just before we left, I was hospitalized with the Guillain-Barré syndrome, which can be temporarily paralyzing. So he let me use a spare wheelchair and a kind fixer who picked me up when my legs wouldn't work, and it certainly gave a better view from their perspective. I had pitched the story to Tim Rasmussen, and he graciously waited till the last nanosecond for me to jump on the boat. I think it was a day after I left the hospital against doctor's orders. At ground zero, of course, with the nation, I wept. That win today, it still gives me the chills to think about it, surely was the souls that we were honoring. I've met Mother Teresa and Muhammad Ali, but it's most humbling to view acts of genuine tenderness by those some would think the least among us. They're not famous, their success is not measured by wealth, but by character and virtue. We're challenged in our work not only to examine issues and expose problems, but also to find poetry in everyday lives. Greatness is not found in a title or awards on your wall. It's when you treat the janitor with the same dignity as the chief, when you look past the disfigured amputee and photograph beauty, the real kind. And a quotation declares in quiet simplicity, "Tell me, I'll forget. Show me, I may remember. Involve me, I'll understand." Each of us leaves behind what we've done on this odd and magnificent journey. Follow your heart, trust your gut. Risk for what matters. Write with light, and cherish those wow moments. And also hang on to the idealistic notion that what we do as journalists still matters. And in fact, I believe it matters even more now. And at a time our stories offer those who feel invisible in the shadows of despair, that vital essence called hope. In the show that will be next, we'll observe news and nuance from the ecstasy and turmoil as communism fell to the sadness of Haiti's perpetual open wound. There's a story on Kosovo's ethnic cleansing, which became another scar on society. Never again was proclaimed after the Holocaust, yet history is repeated over and over in this era of hatred. In Kosovo also, a psychiatric hospital was abandoned when the Serbs fled, and it felt like entering a Hitchcock movie. Deplorable conditions, patients taking care of each other. And it was a tangible example of the power of images, because after our stories ran, aid groups came in to help these desperate people. Sorry. Brutality could not extinguish the spirit in Sierra Leone amputees. Mamouna was one of these amputees. During the war, rebels had a nasty habit of cutting off the limbs of civilians, even children, to intimidate the population. And those atrocities tear at the very fiber of civilization, but they deeply touched their caregivers while in New York to receive prosthetics with their spirit. The love transcended cultural barriers to mend wounds. I spent 4 years documenting their saga, and it's impossible to become that involved in people's lives and not eventually become friends. All were adopted, and one charming little girl named Mamouna is now with a family in DC. And one of the greatest honors of my life was when they asked me to be her godmother, since they said my pictures were the reason they found her. And having one arm stopped her from nothing. She's now in art school, living my original dream, though there's still mutters of becoming a dolphin trainer for some reason. My greatest riches are the relationships that remain long after the story's over and the camera's put down. I've cried for Haiti 1,000 times, but it's nothing compared to the profound sorrow the Haitian heart endures every day, especially during the devastating earthquake and now this damn hurricane. They just can't get a break. And having our work receive a prestigious award like the Pulitzer, of course, means the world, but it's bittersweet as a result of covering disasters like earthquakes. Yet, I've realized we need to allow ourselves a moment of elation, since in an instant the earth can tremble and life is forever altered. Though in Haiti the land was broken, The resilient spirit survived. They prayed and mourned, then moved on with the task of living. To see a little girl in a squalid camp decorate her tent with pink balloons or witness that radiant Haitian smile light up a wounded landscape is certainly humbling. And when you look past the poverty, there's an eloquence of soul that's quite touching. Haitians teach us it's not what you hold in your hand that matters, it's the virtues you hold inside. And Pulitzers, since we're celebrating the 100th anniversary, I believe are not ours. We just accept them for the people who are in the pictures. They validate the importance of their stories. It's not about us or making great photos. We're merely the link. And I try to advise folks to check egos at the door and focus, pardon the pun, on doing justice to stories of the important people, which are those in front of our lenses. There'll be a vignette about a 104-year-old dynamo named Miss Classy that we've talked about in my group, my turquoise group. She spent 4 years caring for her sister Rosie, believing family devotion is a priority. And she was one of those everyday heroes that live their values quietly in our own backyards. She's from DC. She taught lessons about living with principle and dying with grace. She taught me the importance of family. I think we spend so much time photographing other people's lives. Sometimes we forget to live our own. Classy greatly influenced my decision to take leave and care for my own mother and sister, who were both fading away with Alzheimer's. There are always more stories to do, but you only have one family. And even though my mom was in end stage, the first thing I did after the award announcement was call the nursing home and ask them to yell in her ear, she was quite deaf, that I'd won a 4th Pulitzer. And I didn't think she'd understand, but I knew she would have been proud. However, later I had the opportunity to yell in her ear myself. And during a fleeting lucid moment, she said, "Wow, get out." And I think it registered, and it meant the world to me. And hers was the first hand I held, and mine was the last to hold hers, and today is the anniversary of that primal loss, and probably why I was so emotional at the service today. Within the year, you think you're prepared, but you never are. Within the same year, my sister also died from early onset Alzheimer's, and I did the only thing I knew to hold on to pieces of them. I document it. The eve of my sister's funeral, my dearest friend and colleague and brother, almost, Michael Dussel, died while covering Ebola in Liberia. He was a man of great integrity and decency, more impressive than even his talent. We've lost so many incredible journalists recently. And the quote from Plato that I read at Michael's eulogy, "The souls of people on their way to earth life pass through a room full of lights. Each takes a taper, often only a spark, to guide it in the dim country of this world. But some souls, by rare fortune, are detained longer, have time to grasp a handful of tapers which they weave into a torch. These are the torchbearers of humanity, its poets, seers, and saints who lead and lift the race out of the darkness toward the light. They're the lawgivers, the light bringers, the way showers, and truth tellers, and without them, humanity would lose its way in the dark. We honor those brave journalists, as today, by not wavering from telling stories that must be told and rising up just a little bit higher in moral fiber, by shining the light on the darkest corners. I think we all continue to carry that torch, I hope. Endless waves of losses. Actually, I became a hospice nurse. Life goes full circle. Sometime I started in nursing school. And others will surely deal with complicated grief and many times caregiver fatigue of the most cruel disease of dementia as our elderly live longer, or endure other emotional trials, even residual damage from this career. We're human first, not just walking cameras. And I'm kind of on a mission right now. I believe our society and workplaces need to bring grief out of the closet and provide acceptance, support, and comfort. People have told me they feel the need to appear strong and mask their sorrow, even in private, very many high-profile photojournalists. Their sorrow, their depression, PTSD, which many compassionate journalists probably have to some degree. but the suffering is increased by our culture's lack of true understanding. So I'm editing now to publish a book, which has been really hard to do, looking back through the pictures of my family dying. A book on the experience so we can perhaps open a dialogue on the issues and others can feel less alone and know that it is okay to cry. Freelance life now has led to a new chapter, painting a new canvas. Challenging but exhilarating in many ways. I spent most of my life roaming the world and wasn't there for loved ones, and there are no regrets that I made them a priority the past few years. Many advise to keep personal issues hidden, but raw honesty seems to be my MO, and I feel so strongly that we spend our lives expecting people to open up their most intimate moments to our cameras. The least we can do is offer the same courage of transparency to promote a better understanding of the universal emotions we all share. So, you all are indeed the future. But along with the passion for stories, hold tight to the values that first and foremost make you a compassionate human being. The last story you'll see in the essay is the New York firefighters after 9/11, their final salute. So sit back and bear witness. you all, and I apologize for, I obviously needed technical help. And I know I needed editing help too, which Nancy tried her best to give me. Lack of sleep and everything else. But you kind of get the feeling for these people's stories, I hope, and they mean the world to me. A lot of these people are still in my life, and that's, like I said, that's my riches, so thank you.
Okay. We are running a little bit late, but I just want to say one thing to you, Carol. Maybe there's 4 Pulitzers in there, but there's at least 4 lifetimes of images that you provided for us tonight. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing what's been an incredible journey with all of us tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we have one last bit of business before we head outside for a bonfire, I believe. If we're, are we still having a bonfire? Oh, okay, the bonfire has been put out by those nasty winds. Oh, it's okay. You know what that means, though? It means more time for portfolio reviews. Mm-hmm. Good thing, right? So on Carol's laughing. Oh my God! You know, more portfolio reviews. Okay. No, there's a silver lining to every black cloud. So there's a couple of clouds. You know, it would have been. It would have been nice, but it also would have been extremely dangerous. Seriously, 40-mile-an-hour winds and those sparks flying all over the place. And lighting that thing, one year, a couple of years ago, it sounded like a explosion went off, and then like 15 fire trucks showed up. It was like too long a story to explain, but we don't want that to happen again. And safety first, right? So that's extremely important. So we do have one bit of business to take care of tonight before we head to the buses and back to the hotels for portfolio reviews. And maybe you can, if we're not having this bonfire, I'm doing all this, I'm going to make this up. Yeah. All right, we'll like toast marshmallows in the middle of the floor or something instead, No, I'm winging it as much as you guys are, so I just found out there is no bonfire, but somebody's pointing at me, and I'm going to just let them come up here and tell me what to tell you. Say that again? Oh. Okay. You've all just won the lottery. No, that's not what he told me. There will be something small outside. So when you exit, they'll have a small fire. There won't be a bonfire. It'll be a small fire. In fact, if you all get close enough, you'll probably have enough body heat to keep each other warm, where we won't need that little fire. But there will be a little fire, and I understand there might be even a little fireworks. So there'll be a little something for you afterwards before you head down to the buses and back to the hotel. But our last presentation for the evening, a lot of you know that we've been seeing all these breaking news stories coming out about Uncle Nick. Art. Who after 50 plus years, how many exactly at the AP? How many? 51 years at the Associated Press, Nick has decided to retire.